Good evening and welcome back to another episode of The Longing. And it's quite a late one tonight. It's 20 past 11 nearly when I'm recording this, so it's very late in the day that I'm doing this. But anyway, let's continue with reading Dream Days. So, here we go. On this particular morning I was in much too unsociable a mind for paying friendly calls. Still, something in the aspect of the place harmonised with my humour, and I worked my way round to the back, where the ground, after affording level enough for a kitchen garden, broke steeply away. Both the word Gothic and the thing itself were still unknown to me, yet doubtless the architecture of the place, consistent throughout, accounted for its sense of comradeship in my hour of disheartenment. As I mused there with the low, grey, purposeful-looking building before me, and thought of my pleasant friends within, and what good times they always seemed to be having, and how they larked with the Irish terrier, whose footing was one of a perfect equality, I thought of a certain look in their faces, as if they had a common purpose and a business, and were acting upon orders thoroughly recognised and understood. I remembered, too, something that Martha had told me about these same fellows doing a power of good, and other hints I had collected vaguely of renouncements, rules, self-denials, and the like. Thereupon, out of the depths of my morbid soul, swam up a new and fascinating idea. And at once the career of arms seemed overacted and stale, and piracy as a profession flat and unprofitable. This, then, or something like it, should be my vocation and my revenge. A severer line of business, perhaps, such as I had read of, something that included black bread and a hair shirt. There should be vows, too, irrevocable, blood-curdling vows, and an iron grating. This iron grating was the most necessary feature of all, for I intended that on the other side of it my relations should range themselves. I mentally ran over the catalogue and saw that the whole gang was present, all in their proper places. A sad-eyed row combined in tristful appeal. "We see our error now," they would say. "We were always dull dogs, slow to catch, especially in those akin to us, the finer qualities of soul. We misunderstood you, misappreciated you, and we own up to it. And now, alas, my dear friends, I would strike in here, waving towards them an ascetic hand, one of the emaciated sort, that lets the light shine through at the fingertips. Alas, you come too late. This conduct is fitting and meritorious on your part, and indeed I always expected it of you, sooner or later. But the die is cast, and you may go home again and bewail at your leisure this too tardy repentance of yours. For me, I am vowed and dedicated, and my relations henceforth are austerity and holy works. Once a month, should you wish it, it shall be your privilege to come and gaze at me through this very solid grating. But, whack! A well-aimed clod of garden soil whizzing just past my ear starred on a tree trunk behind, spattering me with dirt. The present came back to me in a flash, and I nimbly took cover behind the trees, realizing that the enemy was up and abroad, with ambuscades, alarms, and thrilling sallies. I've not seen that word before. It was the gardener's boy I knew well enough, a red proletariat who hated me just because I was a gentleman. Hastily picking up a nice sticky clod in one hand, with the other I delicately projected my hat beyond the shelter of the tree trunk. I had not fought with redskins all these years for nothing. As I had expected, another clod of the first class for size and stickiness took my poor hat full in the centre. Then, Ajax-like, shouting terribly, I issued from shelter and discharged my ammunition. Woe then for the gardener's boy, who, unprepared, skipping in premature triumph, took the clod full in his stomach. He, the foolish one, witless on whose side the gods were fighting that day, discharged yet other missiles, wavering and wide of the mark, for his wind had been taken with the first clod, and he shot wildly, as one already desperate and in flight. I got another clod in at short range. We clinched on the brow of the hill and rolled down to the bottom together. When he had shaken himself free and regained his legs, he trotted smartly off in the direction of his he trotted smartly off in the direction of his mother's cottage. But over his shoulder he discharged at me both imprecation and deprecation, menace mixed up with an undercurrent of tears. But as for me, I made off smartly for the road, my frame tingling, my head high, with never a backward look at the settlement of suggestive aspect, or at my well-planned future which lay in fragments around it. Life had its jolilities then. That's a new word for me. Life was action, contest, victory. The present was rosy once more. Surprises lurked on every side, and I was beginning to feel villainously hungry. Just as I gained the road, a cart came rattling by, and I rushed for it, caught the chain that hung below, and swung thrillingly between the dizzy wheels, choked and blinded with delicious-smelling dust. The world slipped by me like a streaky ribbon below, till the driver licked at me with his whip, and I had to descend to earth again. Abandoning the beaten track, I then struck homewards through the fields. Not that the way was very much shorter, but rather because on that route one avoided the bridge and had to splash through the stream and get refreshingly wet. Bridges were made for narrow folk, for people with aims and vocations which compelled abandonment of many of life's highest pleasures. Truly wise men called on each element alike to minister to their joy, and while a touch of sun-bathed air, the fragrance of garden soil, the ductile qualities of mud, and the spark-whirling rapture of playing with fire had each their special charm, they did not overlook the bliss of getting their feet wet. As I came forth on the common, Harold broke out of an adjoining copse, and ran to meet me. I always get that word wrong. The morning rain clouds all blown away from his face. He had made a new squirrel stick, it seemed. Made it all himself, melted the lead and everything. I examined the instrument critically, and pronounced it absolutely magnificent. As we passed in at our gate, the girls were distantly visible, gardening with a zeal in cheerful contrast to their heartsick lassitude of the morning. "There's been another letter come today," Harold explained, "and the hamper got joggled about on the journey, and the presents worked down into the straw and all over the place. One of 'em turned up inside the cold duck, and that's why they weren't found at first, and Edward said, 'Thanks awfully.'" I did not see Martha again until we were all reassembled at tea-time, when she seemed red-eyed and strangely silent, neither scolding nor finding fault with anything. Instead, she was very kind and thoughtful with jams and things, feverishly pressing unwanted delicacies on us, who wanted little pressing enough. Then, suddenly, when I was busiest, she disappeared, and Charlotte whispered me presently that she had heard her go to her room and lock herself in. This struck me as a funny sort of proceeding. Mutabile semper. I probably said that wrong as well. She stood on the other side of the garden fence and regarded me gravely as I came down the road. Then she said, "Hi-oh," and I responded, "Hullo," and pulled up somewhat nervously. To tell the truth, the encounter was not entirely unexpected on my part. The previous Sunday I had seen her in church, and after service it had transpired who she was, this newcomer, and what aunt she was staying with. That morning a volunteer had been called for, to take a note to the parsonage, and rather to my own surprise, I had found myself stepping forward with alacrity, while the others had become suddenly absorbed in various pursuits, or had sneaked unobtrusively out of view. Certainly I had not yet formed any deliberate plan of action, yet I supposed I recollected that the road to the parsonage led past her aunt's garden. And with that, we actually come to the end of the episode. So I will say thank you very much for watching me today. No, for joining me today. Wrong words. Thank you very much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful morning, evening, afternoon, or night. No matter what time of day it is, I hope you all have a wonderful one of it. And as always, we will be back tomorrow for more of The Longing. Goodbye.